Hi everyone, Rachel here. Welcome to episode number 47 of the Ditch the Diet podcast. So in today's episode, I am talking to Gemma Newman, who has worked in medicine for 15 years. She's a senior partner at a family medical practice, studied medicine at the University of Wales, and she has worked in many specialities as a doctor, including endocrinology, elderly care, paediatrics, obstetrics, gynecology, psychiatry, general surgery, and is now working in general practice. Gemma gained her additional qualifications in gynecology and family planning and is now a member of the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. Gemma specialises and has a special interest in plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine, and is an advisory board member of the Plantbased Health Professionals UK. She gives nutrition and lifestyle advice to her patients who have gained tremendous results using the power of their plate nutrition and in particular plant-based nutrition. Gemma is also a broadcaster and writer, regularly featured on TV, on ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, Sky News, Sunrise, and has contributed to articles for magazines including Glamour, Zest and Health magazine. Gemma also appeared in the feature film Vegan 2018, which I am putting on my watch list. And her family lead a fully plant-based lifestyle following the extensive research that she's done through the scientific literature and the health benefits associated with eating a whole food plant-based diet. So I was really excited to speak to Gemma and talk to her about plant-based nutrition, about vegan nutrition, and how you can improve the quality of your diet through eating more plants. So without further ado, I will introduce you to Gemma. I've split this interview into two parts. So part one this week, part two next week. And I guarantee you're going to take something really useful away from this. So without any further rambling from me, let's get in about it and speak to Gemma. All right, so today we are here to talk about plant-based nutrition. It's something that's really current at the moment, and there is a lot. I have a funny feeling that there's going to be a lot of media surrounding it in the not too distant future as well. And what I would like to do is talk to someone who is a professional in this field and walks the talk as well in this field to find out the facts about plant-based nutrition, so that my listeners can sort of see through all the rubbish that's out there and kind of learn the truth about it. So before we get started, let's have a chat. Let's find out a bit about you and your background and why you focus on plant-based nutrition.
Sure, fantastic. So I work in a busy NHS general practice. I've been a GP now for, I think it's 10 years now. And I've always wanted to help people. I think most people go into medicine for that reason. They feel like they want to try to help people connect to their best and healthiest selves, but it can be increasingly hard. And I noticed that I wasn't really getting my patients well, despite my best intentions, their best intentions. And I felt like my toolbox wasn't quite full. I felt like I needed a few more tools. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I got into lifestyle medicine and just learning more about nutrition and exercise and sleep and stress and how they can all impact health. And then I started to get healthy myself a few years back. I wanted to lose weight. I was overweight, and I thought, well, let's try and put these ideas into practice, because I can't be hypocritical and, not be my healthiest self. I'm telling other people to do it. So mm-hmm. I started sort of low carb eating to start with, and exercising every day, and I managed to get from a size 18 to a size 8, and I felt great. But I checked my lipid profiles when I was in my 20s, and my lipid profiles were raised, and this worried me because I have a family history of heart disease. My dad and my grandfather both died suddenly of heart disease, and I thought, oh no, I'm in my peak physical condition. I've lost all this weight and I'm exercising all the time. I couldn't be any healthier. And sort of, I put that on the back shelf thinking, well, there's nothing I can do. It's just my fate. It's just my genes. And carried on living life as I thought, as healthily as I could. Then my husband did the London Marathon, and he was getting all sorts of injuries and inflammation. So he wanted to try and improve his performance. And he found a few books. He found Brendan Brazier's Thrive, Rich Roll's Finding Ultra, and what was the other one? Scott Jurek's Born to Run. And he was reading all these books, and he realised that what they had in common was that they were all whole food, plant-based eaters, these tremendous endurance athletes. And he thought, maybe I'll give that a go. And I said to him, no, you can't do that. You'll be nutrient deficient. Something's going to happen to you. And also, I just didn't quite understand how it could be healthier than eating animal products. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So I did more reading, and I did more reading. And then the more I tried to disprove the health benefits, the more I realised, when I delved deep, that there were actually some tremendous health benefits. And so he did his next marathon after the one that the second London Marathon he did, and he managed to improve his running time by 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Whoa.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, you're proving that this has a benefit. And then when I tried it myself, I tested my lipid profiles after just 4 weeks, and they'd gone from high to normal. This is sort of years later, 2 children later, less than half the amount of exercise later. And I thought, crikey, this stuff really works. And it's not just, obviously people always tend to gravitate to something that's worked personally for them. I get that. And that's, years ago, I used to say to people, cut the carbs, it really works. And it does work for weight loss, and it does work for bringing your blood sugars down. But for a third of people, it actually raises their lipid profile. And once I realised that, and I did more research, I realised the other benefits of whole food plant-based eating myself. I realised that it has the potential to even reverse some of our chronic diseases, not just prevent them. So then that's when I became really passionate about it, basically.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. And when we talk about plant-based approach to eating, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is you can have, essentially, what the studies show is that around a 95% plant-based diet seems to be optimal for human health. So there are many kinds of diets that could fit in a plant-based slant and still be healthy. But I think in terms of optimal nutrition, from the weight of the evidence that I've read, it seems to be 95% plant-based, which means essentially having fruits, vegetables, whole grains and legumes as a cornerstone of your diet. And that would include things like cruciferous vegetables, green leafy vegetables, all fruits, berries, oats, nuts, seeds, spices, herbs, water as your main type of drink, and that basically constituting around 95% of what you eat. So if you're thinking about an average week, maybe you have 21 meals, making 19 or 20 of those meals plant-based is I think probably optimal. There are people that are completely vegan, so they will eat 100% plant-based and get some tremendous results. Equally, there are people that eat sort of 90% plant-based or 80% plant-based and get great results. But I think how far people go with it will depend on how good they feel, and perhaps other motivations that they have, whether they have ethical concerns, whether they have environmental concerns, whether they feel like it can fit into their current lifestyle. So essentially what you're looking at is bulking up on the main whole foods that are plant-based in origin. So that doesn't mean things like junk food. You get all these fake meats, and you get sort of Alpro custard and all these kind of comfort foods that we all enjoy that are quite high in processed sugars. That's not what a whole food plant-based approach is all about. It's really all about having whole foods sort of close to their natural state and mostly plants.
That's interesting. I'm just writing down some questions that have popped into my head there that I'll get to in a second. What are the main health benefits of eating more plants?
Well, I mean, if you're looking on a cellular level, you've got phytonutrients, antioxidants, and insoluble and soluble starches, which are all really beneficial for health. You've got something called vascular endothelial factor, which is a way of inhibiting tumour growth, and your body is able to make that with the help of fruits and vegetables. So there's lots of great benefits from having fruits and vegetables. Also whole grains and legumes. Most of the long-lived populations have whole grains and legumes as the cornerstone of their diet. And you could talk about, have you heard of the blue zones?
I have, yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic looking at the blue zones data because you can really dig deep into that. But basically, Mediterranean diet style patterns, such as the ones in Icara in Greece and Sardinia in Italy, they are 2 of the 5 blue zones. That's the kind of things that that you would eat, and the main benefits that you get would be reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, reduced risk of diabetes. I think there's about one study I read showed a 30% reduction in cardiovascular mortality. And you've got the Lifestyle Heart trial, which showed reversal of heart disease using whole food plant-based eating. And the same with Dr. Esselstyn's research in America. He wrote some articles showing how he managed to reverse heart disease in the people who are the sickest people. They're basically, the medical profession have kind of given up on these people. They have heart failure, end-stage heart disease, and he managed to help them reverse it using diet approaches only. With the Lifestyle Heart trial, they used exercise and meditation as well. But with Dr. Esselstyn's research, it was just through diet, which I found fascinating. So that reduces, not only does it reduce heart disease risk, it reduces cancer risk, and it also reduces other causes of inflammation. It can reduce autoimmune diseases, non-alcoholic fatty liver, insulin resistance. It can improve longevity. So if you look at, again, as I mentioned, on a cellular level, you've got the work of Dr. Walter Longo. He is a cellular biologist. He spent his entire life studying how the cell works and how the cell ages. And what he realised was that the same pathways that exist in yeast exist in fruit flies and exist in worms and exist in dogs and rats and humans. And those cellular aging pathways basically mean you've got to cut back on sugar that's not from fruit. You've got to cut back on leucine, which is one of our essential amino acids, but in excess is associated with cellular aging, and animal products have a lot of that amino acid. And you also just got to cut back on calories generally. And that's the beauty of a whole food plant-based diet, is that you can cut back on calories that you're taking in, whilst also feeling satiated and full because of all the extra fibre that you're eating. So it has benefits for depression. I've read studies about improved mood while eating a whole food plant-based diet. And it improves your overall fitness because it can, as my husband demonstrated, it can improve your recovery time quite dramatically when you're exercising. So there's quite a myriad of benefits, and I've seen it in my patients as well. It's been fantastic. Like, their blood pressure has dropped. They've lost weight without much of an effort. They've reversed their diabetes. They've reversed their irritable bowel syndrome. They've reversed their arthritis. I mean, I'm not saying it's a panacea. Clearly, everybody is different, but I think, some of the results you can get are really remarkable.
Yeah, well, wow. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So we've covered what a plant-based diet is. There are lots of different approaches to it. In the world that we live in right now, a lot of the food that we eat is really not food, I suppose. Lots of it is convenience, and busy modern lifestyles mean that a lot of us don't have, or we perceive that we maybe don't have the time or energy to spend on something that we maybe don't value as being that important. Yet I see a lot of people, including myself, this is how I got into doing what I'm doing now, being so tired and unwell, but not actually diagnosed with anything in particular. Like, I had IBS, anxiety, depression, things about 15 years ago, and when I first started to have a look at my diet about 5 years ago. But a lot of people don't realise that the way they feel is related to the food that they eat, because I think a lot of the time when you go to the GP, you'll know yourself, 10 minutes is not a long time to sort of help someone, I suppose. So in this day and age,
tough.
What can people do on a practical level to, if you were to give someone, say you had 10 minutes, let's just imagine someone comes in
Just imagine
and you have
10 minutes.
You have 10 minutes.
I know.
What would be,
it's kind of crazy.
What would be the the sort of the quickest practical tips for someone to start to improve or have a look at improving their diet on a plant-based way?
It is tricky when you've just got 10 minutes, and I managed to do it, but I think when I approach that kind of consultation, I really aim first of all to see where they're at in terms of their emotional state, because when someone's in a severe suicidal depressive state, then just eating more flax seeds is not going to cut it. So like I have to try and assess where they're at to start with and what their motivations are, and if I think that they're open to understanding the importance of diet, then I will bring in some simple swap ideas, and I'll try and explain a little bit about the benefits to them. And I'll try and explain about how, when you have more whole foods that are plant-based, the fibre is not just roughage. It doesn't just make you poo more regularly. It's actually fuel for your beneficial gut bugs, and they produce around 80% of the serotonin that circulates in your body. And that's crucial because, all the antidepressants that we generally prescribe, all they're really doing is blocking your reuptake of that serotonin and reabsorption of it. They're not really helping you make any more. And so how do you make more? The main ways would be sunlight exposure, sort of early morning sunlight exposure. So even when someone is severely down, even a little tip like going out within the first hour of waking up and just looking up into the sky. And if they're receptive to it, I even tell them, look up into the sky and think of 3 things that you're really grateful for. Say thank you for this, whatever it might be. And I might give them some examples. Some people are not in the right sort of mindset to take that on board, but some people really are receptive to that. And the next thing I say is, if 80% of the feel-good neurotransmitters, the feel-good hormones that you're making are coming from your gut and coming from the stuff that you eat, then you want to pile in the good stuff, the fruits and the vegetables and the whole grains and the chickpeas and the lentils and the beans. And then I give them a few sort of ideas about how they can sort of make them sort of fit in with their lifestyle. So I ask them what they like to eat, and if they are starting out with a complete junk food diet, then little changes, like small steps, is where I go. But if they've already tried really hard and they're sort of cooking from scratch, then I'll just suggest a few simple meal swaps for them to try. So if they're really fond of spaghetti bolognese, then I'll suggest a simple 1-pot lentil bolognese that they can make, which takes less time probably. If they like a chicken curry, I'll suggest a chickpea curry. If they're like the ham and cheese sandwich, then I'll suggest a black bean burrito wrap. So I sort of give them ideas about little changes that they could make, whilst also trying to imagine with them a positive future. I think that's the thing that sometimes really stops people, is if they can't imagine themselves doing something or feeling better because of it. So I'll say to them, whatever it might be. So if I have a young girl who is struggling to go out socially, I'll say, wouldn't it feel nice to be able to go out with your friends next weekend, and maybe we can try and work towards that. And I'll suggest if we make these simple meal swaps, then that might be one step towards having the confidence to just give somebody a call, or sort of trying to pair it with a positive behaviour that will push them in the right direction, and then give them a bit of follow-up. So it really varies depending on the person. Sometimes they just like a couple of meal ideas. Sometimes they like to know the research. Sometimes they haven't even got the headspace for that. So we'll just try something really straightforward. It does vary, but that's the basic structure of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I wanted to cover something that I'm not sure how much you know about it. But I'm going to ask anyway and see how it goes. But I know the animal products industry in the UK and the rest of the world, been doing a bit of, myself, a lot of reading about it, which is why one of the main reasons why I decided to stop eating animal products about 3 months ago, was the sustainability and the sort of inability to find out where our food is actually coming from, like especially the animal product industry. How much do you know about that? And is it sustainable? And what are your thoughts? And I obviously don't want to get into the whole animal product debate, really.
Yeah.
But
Well, I can tell you, I mean, in terms of sustainability, there was a study recently. I don't know if you read it, you might have read it already, but there was a study by lead author Joseph Poore at Oxford University. It was published in Science magazine or Science Journal back in June. Do you know about
no,
that
I
study?
haven't, but I've just written it down, so I'm going
Yeah,
to
so
give it a look.
basically, I mean, from what I can remember, he wanted to try and improve sustainability of the animal agriculture industry. That was his initial aim, I believe, from when he started the study. It was a 5-year study.
Wow.
And he looked at over 4,000 farms, I think, on nearly 120 different countries. And what he realised through all his extensive research was that there just wasn't a sustainable way to do it long term.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, I believe that he went vegan after about a year or two of the 5-year study because
Really well.
he wanted to try and sort of align himself with his values, and he slowly came to the conclusion that it just wasn't sustainable, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talk about the benefits of wild salmon and grass-fed beef for health, and I think if you're looking at a spectrum of health, I can absolutely agree that wild salmon and grass-fed beef are healthier than having farmed meat and farmed salmon. But aside from that, there are certain other health problems with those foods, but predominantly it's a sustainability issue. It just doesn't work, unfortunately, and that's the sad fact of it. Yeah, there's no getting away from it. We can try, but it's an uncomfortable truth.
Yeah. And what are the what are the health problems with consuming a lot of meat? Especially, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but there was some media surrounding a possible tax increase on the sale of processed and red meats. Because
yes, I saw that.
I saw so many debates on social media yesterday, and I thought, I'm just not getting involved in this. I'm just not getting involved. It's at that stage now where I think I don't even want to open that can of worms because I don't have time to get involved properly.
But a simple life is definitely good for your mental health.
Yeah, sit on the sidelines and have my own little opinion.
But no, I can talk about some of the health problems. I mean,
yeah, I'd like to know more about
it's all in the literature, so it's something that is pretty straightforward. But I'll start from the beginning. When you cook meat, what happens? You're releasing something. You're releasing AGEs, advanced glycation end products, and those are things like polyaromatic hydrocarbons, heterocyclic amines. They are toxins released from the animal protein as you cook it, and you can't really escape them. You don't get those same toxins when you cook vegetables. Even when you're barbecuing vegetables, I think the safest way to eat meat would be to have it sort of perhaps boiled compared to if you're barbecuing it, but you are still releasing those toxins however you heat the meat, unfortunately. So that's the first thing. I suppose the second thing would be thinking about the way that you're getting other nutrients. I mean, I like to think of it in terms of clean protein and dirty protein in a way, because with meat, you've got protein, yes, you've got vitamins, yes, you've got minerals, and with grass-fed beef, you've also got a higher proportion of omega-3 fatty acids over omega-6 fatty acids, but you've also got other things that are detrimental. So I mentioned about the harms of cooking it. When you get processed meats, as you probably know, you've also got the nitrites, which turn into N-nitroso compounds in the body, which are also toxic and potentially cancer-inducing. And then you've got the iron. So people say that it's good to have meat because it's got heme iron in it, which is more easily absorbed by the body. But unfortunately, that also means it can be more detrimental because it has an oxidizing effect inside the body. So that increased oxidation also can be a problem and lead to inflammation, which is another underlying cause of cancer and heart disease and things like that. Then you've got the amino acid profile. So I mentioned earlier about Dr. Longo and his studies. It's pretty obvious that if we have an excess of leucine, it also increases the aging of the cell. Excess methionine is important as well. Like, we do need these amino acids in the right amounts, and you can get them from plants because all protein comes originally from plants. But when you have them in excess, it's a problem. So methionine in excess is associated with the spread of cancer, because cancer cells are methionine dependent. If you look that up in the literature, you'll see that although cancer cells respond about 10 times more readily to sugar, they are completely reliant on methionine. So if you are selectively starving cancer cells by cutting back on the animal products in your diet, then you're going to be doing a better job of feeling better as part of your chemotherapy or your cancer treatments than you would be if you were trying to cut out everything with like whole grains and legumes and fruits and vegetables that would have natural sugars in them. So that's another one of the harms. Now there's a few others now. What are they? So we talked about amino acids, we talked about heme iron, we've talked about the toxins when you cook them, we've talked about the nitrates. Yeah, there was another one, I think. I can't remember, but there were quite a few different problems with it. Whereas if you're looking at the proteins from vegetables, you've got the starches, insoluble and soluble starches, you've got the phytonutrients, and you've got the fibre, which is food for your beneficial gut bacteria. And you're actually, oh yes, that's what it was. I forgot to talk about TMAO. Do you know about TMAO?
No, don't think so.
Okay, so when you are digesting the animal products, what happens inside is that you're growing colonies of gut bugs that can digest them, and they produce TMA, trimethylamine, TMA.
Okay, yeah.
And then what happens then is that TMA goes to the liver, and then your liver produces TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which is a toxin. It damages the endothelial lining on the inside of your blood vessels. It worsens heart failure. It worsens kidney failure. It is really bad news. And you don't produce TMAO if you're on a plant-based diet. They did a study where they fed a vegan a steak and they didn't produce any TMAO because they hadn't cultivated the gut bacteria with which to digest it.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are a multitude of issues, I think, with having an animal protein heavy diet.
And do you still see these problems if someone eats, like you said, right at the beginning, a 95%, 90-95% plant-based diet? Are these problems reduced if someone, say, does have one meal a week out of their 21 roughly?
Yeah.
Do you still see these problems, even if someone only eats meat once a week or twice a week?
I think what happens when you're having much less of it is that your beneficial gut bugs can crowd out the ones that are causing harm. And, for someone who finds it hard to plan what they're eating, then it might suit them, or they just completely love fish, then it might suit them to just have, 1 or 2 fish meals a week. And I don't think that the science tells you that having that few in terms of meals would be an issue. So I think overall the balance would say as long as you're 90-95% there, then you will see some benefits. If you're 100% plant-based, then I would suggest it's important to take a B12 supplement for sure. The reason is, B12 is really crucial to our health, and it's made by microbes in the soil. And so if you're eating unwashed fruit and veg, and if you're having water from streams and rivers, then you're going to get plenty of B12, but we don't do that anymore. And that's how herbivores that we eat are getting their vitamin B12. But what's interesting is that when you have a factory farmed animal, they have to have B12 supplements in their feed because they're just not able to make any themselves or get any otherwise. And even if you're having a grass-fed animal, they may still need B12 supplements if the soil that they're feeding on is not B12 rich. So essentially what you're doing with a whole food plant-based diet is you're really just cutting out the middleman. Now, there are some supplemented foods, like there are certain nut milks and soy milk and Marmite and nutritional yeast. And so there are places that you can get B12, but I wouldn't risk just getting supplemented foods. I would take an additional supplement because B12 is so crucial. Because there's a toxin called homocysteine, and it increases inflammation and risk of heart disease. And you can only break it down if you've got enough B6, B12, and folate. Now, with a whole food plant-based diet, you're getting loads of folate, you're getting loads of B6, but if you're not getting enough B12, then that could be an issue. So it's really crucial, I would say, to take a supplement. But other than that, you're getting everything else that you need. For people who are sort of elderly or for children, I also like to always suggest vitamin D supplements, but that will be for everyone. It doesn't really matter about diet in that sense, because I think a lot of us are vitamin D deficient because of the issues with the sunlight exposure in our modern lives. The other thing I thought I should mention is about omega-3s.
I was just going to ask. So there we have it, part 1 of our chat with Dr. Gemma Newman. I hope you've enjoyed this so far. Next week we will start off where we left, talking about how to get omega-3s into your diet when you only eat plants and you're excluding fish, which is very interesting, and I hope you're looking forward to catching up with part 2 next Thursday. If you would like to find out more about what Gemma does, the best place to find her is on Instagram. I'm going to link to her Instagram account in the show notes. And any of the scientific studies or literature that we mention in this episode and in next week's episode, I have linked all of those studies on my website, so that if you are interested in reading more about this, then you can go ahead and do that. So all the studies are there. You can find Gemma on Instagram. Her Instagram username is plantpowerdoctor. You can find out more about what we do here at the Ditch the Diet Academy by just heading to ditchthedietacademy.com. Just to let you know that the Ditch the Diet Academy is closing at the end of November until January, because we're having a refurbishment and we are creating an even better platform for our current members and for new members in the lead up to the new year. So if you want to get involved in the Academy, find out what you can learn how to quit yo-yo dieting forever, and learn a little bit more about how to change your lifestyle and improve your relationship with food, then head on over to ditchthedietacademy.com and click on the Academy to find out more. Myself and Gemma will be back next week for part 2 of this episode. Until then, have a great week ahead of you, and I will speak to you very, very soon.